They laughed when I put the little wrinkled box on the table. Not quiet laughter either. It was the kind that snakes around a room and tightens. Smug, knowing, cruel. I had wrapped it in old newspaper because I didn't have real wrapping paper. And the moment I placed it beside the crystal champagne flutes and glittering gift bags, my mother locked eyes with me, and smirked. "Is that for decoration?" my sister said, pretending to hold back a laugh. She probably found it at a thrift store. They all chuckled. Even Uncle Reed, who always played neutral. The only person who didn't laugh was Grandpa. He just looked at the box, quiet. So, and then down at his plate like he suddenly couldn't eat. "My name is Lena Whitmore. And from wherever you're watching this, tell me in the comments, have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family?" My hands were shaking, but I sat down at the end of the long table far from the fireplace, where Mom kept the thermostat cold enough to remind us we didn't belong. My daughter Emma clung to my arm. She was only 10, but she could tell. Tell that the warmth in this house was performative. Tell that the Christmas lights didn't reach my mother's eyes. They passed around wine I couldn't drink, fancy chocolates I didn't touch. But I waited. I waited until the last toast. Until the laughter had settled into clinking forks and the occasional cough. "Dad," I said quietly, "can you open mine last?" Grandpa nodded. His fingers trembled as he peeled back the newspaper, not from age but from something older than that. Something buried. And when he opened the box, everything stopped. Inside was a tiny folded piece of fabric, hand-stitched, faded with time, and a silver chain with a broken clasp. Grandpa's lips parted. He reached out like he was holding a ghost. Then he whispered, "This was your grandma's last message to me." Everyone froze. Mom went pale. And then Grandpa turned to her. Voice steady, but low and sharp like a blade drawn slow. "You stole this from her room the night she died." You could have heard a pin drop. Even the fireplace crackled softer. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because what I did next would set this whole table on fire. My mother's wine glass didn't just tilt, it shattered. Right there in her hand. Her fingers clenched so tight around the stem that red drops slid down her wrist. And for a moment no one knew if it was wine or blood. She blinked like a deer caught in high beams. But Grandpa didn't flinch. He kept staring at her like she was already ash, like the fire had already taken her. "What are you talking about, Dad?" Mom finally said, voice wobbling. "That thing's been missing for years." "No," he said, cutting her off. "I looked for it. After she passed. I looked for weeks." His hands shook now, but from fury. She used to tuck little notes in her sewing. Messages. Things she was too scared to say out loud. "I never found that one." You knew what it meant. I could feel Emma staring up at me, eyes wide. I slid my hand over hers. Because it was time. Time to do what I came here to do. "I found it in Mom's old cedar chest," I said, calm. "In the attic. You know, the one she locked for years after Grandma died." That's when Aunt Brenda gasped. Because everyone in the family knew that chest. It was like a shrine, forbidden, sacred, sealed shut. Until last month, when I caught Mom loading it into a moving van. "She told me to take it to Goodwill," I said, looking right at my mother. "She didn't even open it. Said it was full of junk." But when I checked inside, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with time. Grandpa's hands shot toward it like he couldn't breathe without holding it. "Her handwriting," he whispered, eyes filling. "God, Ruth." Mom shot up from her chair, voice shrill. "You had no right. You had no right," Grandpa roared, slamming a hand on the table. The sound cracked through the silence like thunder. Everyone jumped. Even the twins stopped chewing. And then, in the coldest voice I've ever heard, Grandpa said, "Read it, Lena." So I did. And by the time I finished, my mother's secrets weren't the only thing exposed. Because that letter changed everything. The paper was soft like tissue. Fragile. Like her voice might vanish if I breathed too hard. But I read. Each word was a needle. Stitching a truth no one at that table was ready to wear. "My darling Harold," I began. "If you're reading this, I've already gone. I pray it's you who finds this and not Margaret. Because if it's her, then she's done what I feared." Aunt Brenda gasped. Uncle Reed muttered, "Jesus," under his breath. But I kept reading. "She's always been jealous. I agree. I don't know what happened in her heart, but it twisted. She said I didn't deserve you. That you'd see through me. That you loved me too much for your own good. Grandpa's jaw clenched like he'd swallowed broken glass. Mom stood still as a statue, her face a pale mask stretched too tight. If she finds this note, I'm asking her to remember I was her mother. Not her rival. Not her enemy. Just a mother who loved her even when she hurt me. But if you find it, Harold. My voice cracked. But I forced the last line out like it was blood through gritted teeth. Then I need you to forgive me for staying quiet. And know that my last thoughts were of you. And how proud I was of our granddaughter, Lena. Grandpa let out a sound I'll never forget. Not quite a cry. More like a groan dragged from the grave. He leaned back, eyes to the ceiling, hands trembling as he whispered. She knew about you. A ripple moved through the room. Then Aunt Brenda spoke. Soft. Hesitant. I always wondered why Mom clung to Lena. Even when Margaret moved her across the country, Mom would still write letters. Mail money. She made me burn those letters, I said. And once when I was 11, Grandma sent me a birthday card with a necklace inside, and Mom slapped me so hard I thought my ear would ring forever. You're lying. Mom screamed, pointing across the table. Her voice cracked. She's making this up. You people are fools if you believe this sob story. But Grandpa cut her off again. With the coldest words I've ever heard him say. I believed you for 40 years, Margaret. I'm done now. That was the moment I saw it. Not anger in my mother's eyes. But fear. Because she knew what came next. And so did I. I had one more gift. And it wasn't wrapped in newspaper. I reached under Emma's chair and pulled out a plain black folder. It wasn't wrapped. It wasn't festive. But the truth inside it was colder than any December night. This, I said, placing it in the center of the table, is Grandma's power of attorney. Her will. Her bank records. Her letters. All of them. My mom's face drained of color so fast it was like watching a curtain rip off a stage mid-scene. You went through my house, she hissed. No, I said calmly. I went through Grandma's house. You just lived there like a squatter after she died. Aunt Brenda was already flipping through the folder. Her mouth dropped open. Oh my God. Page 5, I told her. Start there. She read it aloud. And her voice shook with every word. In the event of my death, I leave my jewelry, my keepsakes, and the cedar chest to my granddaughter, Lena Whitmore. I leave full access to my safety deposit box to Lena as well, to be opened only in the presence of Harold Whitmore. Mom lunged forward. Snatched at the folder. But Uncle Reed caught her wrist. Hart, you told us she left nothing, he growled. You told us everything had been donated. You said her account was closed. That the bank said it was empty. It was. Mom shrieked. I checked. No, you emptied it, I said, sliding a printed ledger across the table. After she passed. 3 days later, $48,000 transferred into an account ending in 8221. That's your Chase account, isn't it? Her mouth opened, then shut. Nothing came out. Emma, I said softly, can you hand me Grandma's necklace? She pulled it from her pocket. A simple gold chain with a locket. Inside, a tiny photo of me at age 5. And the words, for my girl who sees what others won't. I held it up like a crucifix. That locket was in the chest. You stole it, hid it, tried to erase me from her story. But she left this for me. For us. All of it. Grandpa stood. Unsteady but tall. I want Margaret out of this house, he said. I want the locks changed tonight. Mom started crying. No makeup this time. Just raw, messy sobs that sounded more like guilt than grief. But I didn't comfort her. Because some fires don't need water. They need air. And I was done holding my breath. Mom didn't leave quietly. She knocked over her chair. Slammed her fist on the table. And screamed at me like I was the villain in her story. You don't know what she did to me. She always loved you more. You're just a spoiled little brat who thinks a few papers make you queen of this family. But Grandpa didn't flinch. He pointed at the door. And when she didn't move, he whispered just one word. Out. She stormed off in her heels, grabbing her designer coat with shaky hands. But as she passed me, she paused. Her breath was ragged. Her voice venom. You think this makes you special? She hissed. She only picked you to spite me. You're just a symbol, Lena. Not a person. I met her gaze. Come, Pog. No, Mom. I'm the truth. And you've run from it your whole life. She left. The door slammed like thunder. And silence flooded the room like rain after a drought. I stood there, shaking. But not with fear. Not even sadness. With release. Emma slipped her hand into mine. Uncle Reed walked to the bar and poured Grandpa a glass of scotch. And for the first time in a long time I saw my grandfather smile through tears. She always told me you were strong, he said, voice cracking. But I didn't realize how much of her lived in you until tonight. I nodded. Then reached into the bottom of the folder. One more thing, I said. I found this inside the chest. It wasn't addressed. Just had my name written on the back. It was a photo. Grandma holding a newborn. Me. He was crying in the photo. But smiling. On the back. She tried to keep us apart, but love remembers what fear buries. The room went still. Even Aunt Brenda wiped her eyes and whispered, "Damn, Mama." We didn't open presents that night. Not the ones under the tree anyway. But I think we opened something bigger. Wounds. Truths. Doors long sealed shut by lies. And one by one we chose to walk through. Into the light. And out of her shadow. The next morning I woke up to frost on the windows and silence in the air. But it wasn't cold. Not the kind that lived in our house for years. The silence was clean. Like after a storm. Like something had been scrubbed out. I came downstairs to find Grandpa already dressed. Shirt tucked in, jacket buttoned, eyes tired but alert. He looked at me and said, "Bank opens at 9. You ready?" I nodded. We drove in silence, the kind that speaks more than words. At the safety deposit vault, the manager opened the metal box with a key and a smile. Grandpa lifted the lid like it held bones. Maybe it did. Inside, a small journal. An envelope thick with papers. And one last folded note. He passed the note to me. Hands shaking but eyes steady. "You read it." I opened it. The handwriting was fading but still fierce. "If they ever try to rewrite the story, show them this. Love is not something you hoard. Something you protect even after death. Don't let her take it. Not again." I read it aloud. The bank manager turned away politely, but I saw the shimmer in his eyes. The envelope held Grandma's stocks. Apple. Johnson & Johnson. Even a dusty certificate from 1993. Microsoft. Grandpa's voice broke. "She always said she had a little tucked away." He laughed softly. "She had a damn empire. Over $280,000 in assets. All of it left to me. And in her will it was clear. I was not just a footnote. I was the legacy she chose to protect." Grandpa signed the transfer papers that day. Handed me the journal. Said, "Read this when you're ready." She wrote in it every year. I clutched it like a heartbeat. That night we sat around the fire. Just Grandpa, Emma, Uncle Reed, and me. No pretense. No forced smiles. Just healing. I looked over at the empty chair where Mom used to sit. And I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just grief. For what could have been. For the mother I never really had. But that grief didn't burn me. Not anymore. It just reminded me of who not to become. A week passed. Christmas faded, but the aftershocks didn't. Mom sent texts. Long ones. Blaming me, begging me, bargaining with ghosts I'd already buried. "You humiliated me in front of the family. You don't understand what it was like growing up with her. We could split it, you and me. Like a fresh start." I didn't reply. You can't build a future on top of rot. But then came the voicemail. 30 seconds. Quiet at first, then broken. "Lena, I didn't mean to steal it. I just thought, she always gave you everything. I never felt like I had anything that was mine. Not even her love." I sat with that. Let it bleed. Because sometimes the wound isn't from the knife. It's from who's holding it. Emma and I were walking downtown when we passed the old bookstore Grandma loved. It was closing. Final sale. The door creaked like a goodbye. Inside I found the first book Grandma ever gave me, Little Women. Inside the cover was her old inscription, "Be brave in the small ways first." I bought it for $1. And I knew what to do next. The following Sunday I hosted dinner. At my tiny apartment. No heirlooms. No fine china. Just paper plates, spaghetti, and the people who chose truth over performance. Uncle Reed brought wine. Emma made salad. Grandpa brought a folded note. She wrote this in the journal, he said. Year before she died. You should read it tonight. After everyone left, I curled up on the couch. Read it slowly line by line. My daughter doesn't see me anymore. Only my disappointment. Lena. Lena sees me even when I don't see myself. I hope she knows one day that love isn't what you say. It's what you protect in someone when no one's watching. I cried then. The way you cry when something releases from the center of your chest. That night I dreamed of Grandma. She was in her garden. Waving. And for the first time she wasn't saying goodbye. She was just watching me go forward. Lighter. Wiser. Still holding her hand, just from the other side. 3 months later I stood in front of the house I used to run through barefoot as a child. The one with the cracked blue shutters and the rose bushes she pruned every Saturday like clockwork. Grandpa had called earlier that week. Said he'd made a decision. Said the house was mine now if I wanted it. I walked through the front door slowly. The same creak. The same smell. Lavender, dust, and something else. Memory. In the living room, sunlight hit the corner of the wall where Grandma used to keep her wedding photo. The frame was gone, taken probably by Mom years ago. But the shadow was still there. Etched like a scar. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. This wasn't about mourning anymore. It was about restoration. I spent the next few weeks turning the house into something new. Not a museum for the past, but a future built on truth. I kept the kitchen tiles she loved. Replanted her roses with Emma. Hung new photos, not just of Grandma but of everyone who showed up when it mattered. One evening as I unpacked the last box, there was a knock at the door. It was Mom. She looked older. Smaller. Like someone who'd finally looked in the mirror and didn't recognize what stared back. She held something wrapped in tissue. I think this was supposed to be yours. I unwrapped it. It was the missing frame, the wedding photo. But behind the photo I found something else. A pressed flower. A gardenia. Dry but intact. And on the back of the frame, forgive doesn't mean forget. It means I let go of the knife. I looked at Mom. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly. But I won't pretend the past didn't happen. She nodded. Tears welled. Not crocodile ones this time. She left without asking to come in. And that was okay. Some doors don't need to close with slams. Some just stay gently shut for good reason. That night I lit a candle in the kitchen. Laid the flower in the journal beside Grandma's last words. And I smiled. Not for revenge. Not for victory. For peace. For survival. For a legacy stolen, and then reclaimed.